What is up, all you GBA type people? This is Tom, and as always, we are back with your weekly power rankings, this time week 2 of the GBA. With me, as always, is my co host, Crobat for the win.
Hey guys, Crobat for the win. Danza here today.
And this week, as I'm sure you've heard in the recap already, was kind of the week of hacks. So I'm sure that we will have a lot to discuss in our rankings and our lists. And this week's going to be a little different than how we had ranked last week, and our I guess our agreements last week because we had a lot of teams in the same spots.
Yeah, we did, and this week the hacks just kind of threw everything off kilter. Keep this in mind, everyone. Every single person in our power rankings moved, up or down.
Now, to the extent at which they move up or down, obviously we will discuss as we do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the reason that we'll really back up, agreeing or otherwise. That's why we're here. So, starting from the bottom, I don't mind talking about Nips. Hey, Nips is number 12. This week, watching him, it was kind of touch and go. Um, I kind of pinpoint his match, both their matches, his and Mulvone's match was kind of like reckless planning. It wasn't necessarily thorough. Like I see the point in which they made their plans. Um, but I think that Nips kind of he let the win go. Um, Two big things for me, and I'm sure we can discuss more about this. Having the way he discussed having vacuum wave on Blaziken, he said just because. That it was good planning to have it. I mean, saying just because is not a good reason, but the fact that he had it, it was kind of a check to Weavile. And then outside of that, going for agility with his Mega Altaria when Mulvone still had a Weavile around, I'm not quite sure that's a good move. The only redeeming quality that Nips had this week was that he got burn hacks, two flamethrower, 10% chance burns, and he used Blaziken very well early on, but let it die later, which kind of ultimately led to his loss. So, Dan,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, you mentioned the crit ice shard. Uh, that was kind of just because he kind of put himself in a bad spot to begin with, you
Yeah,
know?
he did.
Um, I do think because he just threw Vacuum Wave on, because I really feel in the GBA, you really need to have a reason for every move.
Oh
You,
yeah,
you can't just throw moves on there. Yeah, it happened to work out for him, but it really should be a clear cut. This move is for checking this. This move is for team support. This move is to get coverage on this. This move is to heal, whatever the case may be. That I think was my one of my biggest problems with Nips this week. And obviously, he ended up losing 3-0. That's kind of a sizable loss. And in a lot of ways, I think, by the way, I think he hastily planned a bit, or he might have hastily planned a bit. I feel like even though that crit ice shard happened, he kind of made his own bad luck in a way. He kind of didn't help himself with the team planning he did. I just didn't think it was all around strong enough to take on Mulvone. Surprisingly, Talonflame didn't actually do anything to Nips' team, which I can at least commend him for that. That was one good thing. But overall, that I think is just the biggest problem. I don't know why you mentioned the agility. I think that was kind of the low light of the match for him as well. One of the other ones. All around, he's got some work to do. I can see kind of what he's doing, but he has so many. His thoughts are all over the place. It seems that he really needs to just focus every week when he plans. Sit down for an hour, run some damage calcs, and if he wants to be successful, if he wants to at least lose at 1-0 margins or get really close games, if not win, he's got to do more homework. That's
just an
kind of my
hour.
thoughts on Nips, and that's why I put him at 12 because he seems like it's so. I guess it is kind of hard to judge in a lot of ways, but it seems like he's just not as much invested in it as some of the other guys based on the ways he's planning and based on some of the moves he makes. And that might be controversial, but That's honestly what I think, and that's not a knock on Nips.
Let me ask you, when you were in the GBA, how many hours did you say you put into your planning each week, regardless of who you were playing?
Yeah, I put it in a pretty much consistent. I'd like to say maybe spread out over a week 2 hours. It wasn't sit down for 2 hours, but what I would do is maybe sit down for a half hour. I'd brainstorm maybe 12 different ideas for some good sets. Uh, Extreme Speed Raikou. No, I don't really like that this week. It doesn't really fit. How about Choice Specs Raikou? Yeah, he doesn't have a ground type. That's a pretty good idea. His team's pretty slow. Okay, great. Stuff like that. That's the kind of process I went through. And
Right.
that was the first half hour. And then I ended up, when I decided what kind of sets I wanted, then it was move deciding. I had to go through every move pool to see what kind of coverage moves I wanted and what sort of coverage I needed, obviously based on the other team. That took probably a good hour just to find all the moves.
Yeah, it's
Then
defined planning.
I had to
Define
make
two.
some damage calcs to do specializing EVs. I don't just run 252, 252.
No, I did.
So I did some specializing of EVs, and then I made it in Showdown. And that doesn't even include the time I spent putting it through Pokebank. Now there's PK Hex, but back in the day it was just
Hey,
Pokebank.
I still gen my stuff. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I still have access to PK Hex, so.
Oh, okay. Well, but the point is,
But yeah,
audience,
I put in
when
a lot of time into it, and
yeah,
it's like
we
two to
both
three
did. I mean,
hours every week.
it's necessary for the GBA coaches to really put that time into it. I will say one of, I guess, Nips's, redeeming qualities was that Mulvone kind of threw away his Talon Flame early. Because that thing, you know, uh, priority Brave Bird beats out a Scarf Blaziken, and if it wasn't choice banded, it could blast most of the things on his team. He did have an effective use of Quagsire. That was good. He had an Alakazam, one of my favorite revenge killers in this format. He kind of played it not smart, so don't know really what to say about that. But I think that we should move on unless we have anything else to say.
Nope, I think we got it all out in the air. I think we're good.
Okay. Um, Next up, we have Geo. You can start on this one.
Sure. Uh, Geo of the Giantes. It's just a tough loss for him. I just find it really ironic that he has this rain team, yet Victini manages to be his Achilles heel this week. Not only does Achilles not die, and Victini not die, not Achilles. I'm messing myself up. Not only did Victini not faint, but it got 4 kills. And I could see why. Miguel planned very well. Like I was talking about earlier, he thought about coverage. And I don't think Geo accounted for that, the coverage that Victini had. And I think that was partially what led to his demise in a lot of ways. Um, okay. I feel like in a lot of ways, Geo kind of was predictable in his Scizor set, kind of had to use Defog.
Yeah, you did.
I did kind of like Acid Armor Gudra
Me too.
in a lot of ways. I do think there's some potential there. Uh, Overall, I just feel like Miguel kind of just broke down what he had more. I do think Geo is planning. I'm just not sure he's 100% sure of how to use what he has together yet. Like, it's not fluid. Can he make it fluid? Yeah, I think so, because I really do think there is some potential in what he has. But when he ends up uh, getting beaten down pretty badly by a fire type in a supposed rain team, then you kind of have a little bit of a problem. I hope I could see him get some of that fluidity together over the next few weeks. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts?
I can totally agree with that. I think, see, it's weird to me because when you look at Miguel's team, it's like his lead just screams Victini because just how versatile Victini's moveset is, and it gets grass moves, whether it's grass knot, energy ball, or HP grass. I don't know why you'd run that, but point is, that Miguel is going to lead with Victini, or at least it was painfully obvious that he did so this week. So, or even Megalopunny. So, regardless of the fact, like he led with Swampert to Mega Evolve, but he didn't because he was fearing for the Energy Ball, and then Miguel just went for U-turn. Now, obviously, risk versus reward wasn't there, but not Mega Evolving early and being forced to Mega Evolve whether he was in the rain or when rain hadn't been set up yet, I think that's so risky with Mega Swampert. I'm saying Rain doesn't do anything but boast
Mm.
speed, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like when we were in the GBA season three, when Mega Swampert was used, it it got Mega Evolved, but it Mega Evolved in a way that was both effective and not risky to the point where it was useful. Like you could use it right the turn that it Mega Evolved. I feel like Geo is hurting himself because when he does Mega Evolve later rather than sooner, he's forced to like take a step back and maybe lose momentum that he's trying to build. Um, Outside of that, like you said, I like the Goodra set. I thought Acid Armor was really smart to take on Megalop. Um, I do think that the disconnect hurt him because the Megalop Honey got a higher roll on the high jump kick after the DC. And then outside of that, like you also said, he's forced to use Defog Scissor. I think I might have called that earlier on because of the fact that his team doesn't really have any spinners or defoggers that are at least usable. Um, and then Scolipede didn't get off a baton pass
Hey, that was
again.
a bold
So
prediction. That Scolipede wouldn't get any baton passes off.
hey, and it's held true so far. Even my bold prediction, where well, doesn't matter. Point is, it's just it's hard for me to really get a good like affinity toward his team because it's just he's being outplayed, and then his team is kind of in lockdown by who he's playing. Granted, Miguel is one of the best planners and then late game players that I've ever seen, but the fact of the matter is that it's very easy to look at Geo's team and see that he's either forced to play aggressively because of the matchups or the risk versus reward factor, or um, it's very like one dimensional sometimes,
Hmm.
and that could be crucial.
Yeah.
I will say I did like his bulky Mesprit set or like bulky scarf, whatever it was, but I like to see more from Geo. It's kind of let me down a little bit. I like this rain team. I had a hope for him and Crimson, and I hope they do really kind of show what they can do. Yeah, that's
Certainly.
pretty much it.
I think my two last remarks about him. Uh, Obviously, offensive pressure. He needs to focus on getting some offensive
Yeah, he
pressure
does.
off. That's most important. And two, utilizing Mega Swampert properly.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
you addressed that very well. I feel like if he used it in a more effective manner, if he tried to get it early, maybe even lead with it once in a while, it might be an unexpected lead.
Well, I mean, he did lead with it, but when Miguel led with Victini, the
Hmm.
first thing that came to his mind was, oh, he might have Energy Ball, oh, he might have Grass Knot, and I guess
Right.
depending on the team, obviously, it,
Obviously,
it
it's depending on the
depends.
team, but I'd say
Exactly.
don't be afraid to lead with it. Obviously, I know he wasn't this week, but get it off early, like you said. I think if he can do those two things, then he'll have more success in later weeks. And
Exactly.
even if it's outside of Swift Swim, Mega Swampert has a lot of natural bulk that, as long as it's not taking a grass type move, it really doesn't mind taking any attacks.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think we've seen that just multiple times that it does have the capability to take hits and do whatever it needs to. So, moving on to number 10, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
It was really high. Oh my lord. All right, Steve, Milwaukee Sawsbucks.
Oh man.
How do we explain him? Nice team, not nice playing, I guess is the nice way to say it.
Uh, I had such high hopes for him. I really did. And I feel so bad keeping him low because I really thought he was going to do better.
I love that team, man. I think the whole Suicune Landorus thing is, I like it. I
Mm.
mean, I think, and oh, and Arcanine, of course.
And the sad part is, I see flashes of when Steve is on his game, he does great.
Oh
But
yeah.
but then it's like two plays in the game, the first two games, he basically loses because of two plays or maybe one move that was wrong or something like that. It's only the little things that are seemingly keeping Steve back.
I think, it's funny. This is, you mentioned one play. All right. I think the one play this week, and this is obviously okay. We are analysts, we are watchers of the games being played. When you're in the match, it's much different. You're in the match, you think maybe too aggressively. Like in my case, I would see red sometimes. That's just a figure of speech. You something's really bothering you, you want to kill it, but you make like a dumb play instead of keeping momentum, or you play too defensively. I think this week, Steve kind of saw. Um, He saw red. What was he? What do you have it in? He went for Earthquake. I think with Donphan against Hank's. What do you have? Now I'm being unprofessional here. Um, yeah. Okay. So Steven had one for Earthquake against Donphan against Hank's Infernape. Okay, back on track. By doing so, I think by not going for rocks, I think is what really hurt him.
Yeah.
I believe Donphan did have rocks. And I say this because we're looking at this from hindsight, but by getting rocks up, that crit ice shard was huge because it would have actually killed the Mega Pinsir. And by having rocks up, he created the pressure, especially getting 25% onto the Pinsir before Mega Evolving, and then making sure it couldn't switch out.
Hmm.
It didn't switch out, obviously. It's not my point, but you know, it's going for Earthquake over going for something supporting like rocks on a team that really he could have got used that damage against. I felt like that was really kind of it's kind of like it was naive, and I think he could fix it in the future. Not only that, Clear Spog Amoonguss, he saw it last week. He planned for it this week. He still disregarded it. Like he went with Calm Mind like 3 times in Suicune. I understood, his planning, but when he only had Scald on Suicune, you had no business staying in, regardless if you're going for Calm Mind or not. You're still not going to do that much, especially against an AV Amoonguss. Um, besides that, I want to hear what you say because we can talk, and then later we'll talk about the Hypercutter incident with not accounting for the Intimidate and all that.
Hmm. Yeah, I really feel like one of the things you brought up was Stealth Rocks, and I really think even if Donphan were to faint as a result, it would have been worth getting his Stealth Rocks up.
Yeah,
I know that Hank had Excadrill, and it's likely that it had Rapid Spin, but all of a sudden, if you know that Excadrill is going to go for a Rapid Spin, you basically get a free switch into Landorus T.
right,
Like, all the time. I mean, in general, Excadrill does nothing to Landorus T anyways.
right.
So, all of a sudden, you have some offensive momentum. And then, if he carried U-Turn, I think that would have been better planning. If he didn't have U-Turn, I don't remember if he did or not. But if he had thought about that and maybe made a defensive set with U-turn, which maybe he did, I can't check right now, obviously.
It was
Then he
defensive.
could have capitalized on that type of momentum. And let's just say he predicted wrong and Excadrill stayed in for whatever reason against Landorus T, even at -1. Then all of a sudden he is Donphan, which can still take a hit or two.
Right. And then even if that can't take a hit, then he still has I believe he brought Arcanine, he didn't bring Arcanine. He still has
Suicune.
Suicune. And
Yeah.
there you go.
So I see three defensive monsters there that if he tried to force Hank into going for Rapid Spin, I really feel like that would have benefited Steve because he could have had all the momentum in the world if he just ran U-turn on Landorus T and made a defensive one with U-turn. I think that could have worked out for him
And
possibly.
now commenters, maybe if he did have U-turn on Landorus T and we're oblivious, calm down. All right.
Yeah, we're only human.
Yeah. Um, outside of that, I still see Landorus being forced into a defensive role. Don Fennell can only do so much, and Landorus is one of like the best like defensive mons in OU and all that.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to break that out of its role, especially depending on the matchup, week to
Mm.
week, obviously.
And
But the big elephant in the room, Hypercutter Pincer, and then Showdown Calcs. I know, Danza, have you had your issue sometimes with Showdown and killing you sometimes?
oh yeah.
Okay. Showdown is not the most reliable, and it does kind of really not account for what you're trying to portray. Um, Having Intimidate, just set in the little slot on the Showdown calc does kind of mess you up. I think it was a mishap by Steve, not necessarily. It was a game killer, obviously, let Pincer 6-0, but outside of that, it's one of like those small, like nuances that you really have to be aware of. But hey,
Mm.
you live and you learn.
Yeah, yeah. I also got a little story, just for a minute or so. This is I don't remember what match, but this is just some random match. I don't think it was GBA. No, it definitely wasn't GBA. But it was just a match I was in. I because the showdown calculator starts at level 100. I calced it just
Yeah,
at
there you
level
go.
100 to see the damage, and it did more damage at level 100 than it did at 50. So I ended up getting, or whoever used an attack, I think it was Earthquake, got a max roll, and it ended up being KO'd. And I'm like, what? This does 98% max. What is? Nope, because it was at level 50 in the game. So Showdown calculators are not perfect, and we all have to know those little quirks.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's, I think, the lesson going out of this week for sure. Also, I will say, bright spot for Steve. I think he played Electros very well. He
Yeah, he
actually
did.
did make it into the top plays this week with his couple Electros moves. The flamethrower Volt Switch combo I thought was spot on in predictions because, like I said earlier, when Steve plays to his game, he does very well. It's just those little mistakes that just bring him down, and it really brought him to his knees this week. And it's sad to see because I obviously we thought he had so much potential, and I still think he does.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's just I just wish he could eliminate some of those little mistakes. Well, that's all I got to say about that.
It's all that it takes. Little things, you get rid of the little problems, and you don't have much to worry about after that. So, number 9, Crimson of the Detroit Steel Wings. Dan, take this one.
Okay. Uh, in general, Crimson started out on a bad note last week. There's no doubt about it. He said he didn't want to use the same items, which obviously wasn't a fan of. And I think he lost 5-0. Am I correct?
Last week?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. So obviously things weren't starting out. He was at my number 12. And I made a joke on Twitter that since everyone moved, he had to move up this week. And you know what? He moved up by a pretty large margin. A lot of that wasn't as much him moving up as much as everyone below him just moved down. Uh, in my book, Crimson only moved up a little bit because yes, he beat Cooper, and that's great, but that Thunderbolt Parahax on Charizard kind of spoiled
Saved
the
him.
yeah, it saved him. It spoiled the victory, you know. And I know hacks is hacks, but in a lot of ways, it's so hard to say, yeah, Crimson is good. He should be moving up to 6 because he beat Cooper. It was really just
That's
kind of
not
a
how it
Thunderbolt
works.
para. And I will admit, Crimson made some good plays. I'm not saying he didn't. And that's great. I do think he did a lot better than he did the week before. There's definitely an improvement there, but he was really helped out by that Thunderbolt para. I'm pretty darn sure that Cooper would have won right there had he not got it. So basically, my bottom line is I have nothing against Crimson. He's a great guy, obviously, but it's really everyone below him just moved down. He didn't really move up as much, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Go ahead. What are your thoughts?
I think he kind of revealed his hand a little bit too quick. Outside of the T-Bolt Zardex shenanigans, which, like you said, did save him. I think he revealed Counter Clefable, which I liked it. I think he revealed it a little bit too soon. If he had waited until after Aggron had been KO'd, kind of a different story. Um, the Iron Head flinch against his Clefable, that was unfortunate. The Shadow Ball crit against his Gothitelle, also unfortunate. Good planning on Cooper's end to have that max speed Blissey, which I don't think I have ever said and probably will ever say again because oh my god, max speed Blissey. This game was just a weird match.
Is it
Him
Serene
bringing
Grace too?
what?
Is it Serene Grace?
Well, crits aren't affected by Serene Grace.
What? What?
Crits aren't affected by Serene Grace.
No,
Anyway,
no. I mean, but if he was getting special defense drops,
oh yeah, that's true. Might have been, or it might have been Natural Cure Blissey. It
I was
doesn't
just
really matter.
wondering because I don't know. I was gonna say, didn't if he went for Shadow Ball or spammed Shadow Ball, maybe
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
special
exactly.
defense drop. I don't know. I'm just.
Um, my issue is it was little things that it was weird team building on both their ends. Not to bash either coach. Obviously, they plan as they will, and what they think might not necessarily be what the other coach thinks. And we've seen that before in the past in the GBA. But thinking that Shadow Tag traps ghosts, thinking that he could trap Dust Noir with Gothitelle like he had planned, that's not how it works. That's kind of like do your homework type thing. Not having Will-O-Wisp on Sableye again, it's kind of like a bread and butter type thing. That's pretty much necessary, especially when Cooper had, your Lucario and stuff like that. So I think this was a weird match on their end. It was just weird. Like I can't pinpoint why, but it was like sloppy and weird team building, and Mega Beedrill still didn't get a kill. So I hope that stays true. That it doesn't get 7 kills because that's one of my bold predictions. But what
Hey,
do you think? I don't. Yeah, I don't. This is a weird match.
yeah, no doubt. Mega Beedrill still doing nothing. I think so far, unless this Mega
This is the
Beedrill
first match of
magically
game two.
gets a 6-0 week, which is not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Um, it's on track for sure to not get 7 KOs because
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to bring it every week. Let's just say for a discussion, he brings it to 5 games this year or 6. It's not going to average 2 KOs a game. It's
no,
going to
it's
get a
not.
couple maybe.
Maybe
I'm
if
not
it's
expecting
really
it.
lucky.
That is, I think, a better and better bold prediction as the weeks
Yeah,
go on.
but yeah, this match was just weird, beginning to end, and I can't. I don't know what to say to improve for next week. I mean, just play better, like Brink, skate better, whatever.
And I do think it was a small improvement, but like I said, it was so clouded by all the weirdness and all the hacks and whatnot.
And not even
So
just
it
hacks
was
in his
definitely a
match, hacks
difficult
in
match.
everyone else's match.
And as I said, it's not really as much Crimson moving up as much as everyone else around him who kind of just moved down below him.
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyways, I think we're pretty much ready to wrap up Crimson. How about number 8?
Number 8, Tup, the man with the plan. Pittsburgh Piratas.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Tup. I think that Tup. This is a lucky match. Granted, let's take it for what it's worth. I was the Crepitos back in the GBA. Hacks happens, but this match really was saved and then really molded by hacks. It was a good win by Tup. I liked his team. I think the Zam set was interesting. I like Sub Zam, especially Mega Zam because it can kind of do such. Um, let's see. It's funny because I think that Tup plays very safely when he needs to, and then makes good plays when not necessarily when he doesn't have to, but just in general. That sounds convoluted. I say that because the Zam crit with Focus Blast against Empoleon that mattered. Late game, the Mence crit on the Crocodile that mattered. Um, but then outside of that, uh, he was playing so safely that he allowed John to get the Aura Sphere on the Mamoswine. I could see why he switched out from Heatran to Mamoswine against Shiny Raikou, but on the same token, there was like no risk versus reward by not going for Aura Sphere, especially because it was the Shiny Raikou. When you see that, you gotta instantly assimilate Shiny Aura Sphere. And then outside of that, when John did let when he volt switched out and they got a Crocodile for free against the Zam, just the way that he had brought it out, it did kind of not scream scarfed, but that it did have pursuit, and it was a great play by John to, pursue trap. But Tup did play better. I did like to see that he bounced back from a 6-0 loss from week one, and then kind of bring it back now with the Magma Storm Heatran. I love the way that move looks, and I thought it was a good use this week. I do think though that hacks did save him. Nothing against his planning; it was great planning. Um, but without that, I think John could have sealed that because John, I think, had the better late game plan. But Tup was just given the grace of the gods from last week and be like, here you go. Here's a 1-0. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, in general, it's kind of the opposite of what I said about Nips. All right, I got an Ernest Hemingway quote here. You make your own luck. You know what makes a good loser? Practice. Nips, obviously, we talked about, has to work on practice. But I feel like, in a lot of ways, because I really do think Tup planned very well this week. Overall, yeah, he made some mistakes, but because he planned well, he kind of made his own luck in a way. And I know that's a silly argument, but I don't know. Maybe that's why the game ended up somehow giving him so much good luck. That's crazy, I know. But anyways, back to reality. Magma Storm Heatran, I'm a big fan of it. I thought that was actually the perfect way to take out Mega Venusaur because he knew the calc in advance. He knew that one or two Magma Storms after the extra damage at the end of the turn would be a KO even after Thick Fat, which obviously I'm a big fan of. In general, I feel like, yeah, there were some bad plays that he made. Once again, you might have mentioned it. The one at the end when he didn't switch Hitmontop in on, I believe it was Curum Black, the burned Hitmontop. It was kind of useless. He kind of just foddered off what he had. I can't remember what it was off my head, but he basically just foddered it off for no reason and died to a Fusion Bolt. Uh, that kind of stuff, I think he's just going to work on with time as he gets more experienced. In a lot of ways, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Crimson. I just was relatively impressed with Tup this week compared to last week, and I feel like he did move up a little bit in my mind, definitely, and it's an improvement. But I feel like the people below him, especially the bottom three, as I said for Crimson, they just kind of moved under. And that's more of the reason why Tup moved up than not. And there were certainly some, once again, Magma Storm Heatran was great, but not expecting Aura Sphere on Raikou when you see it shiny, that I kind of question a little bit. I once again, he'll get it with experience. I know he will. But that's one of that's actually the part of the reason why I run Shiny Raikou, or ran rather. I ran Shiny Raikou and Entei every week in the GBA. So that way I could trick people into thinking, oh, does this one have Extreme Speed? Does this one have Flare Blitz? Does this one have Extreme Speed? Does this one have Aura Sphere? And most of the time I actually didn't. But I can successfully
You
bluff that.
cheeky person, you.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's advice for John, I guess. But that's something just he's gotta pay attention to the little details. It's a lot of small things for Tup. It's just they have amounted to a less than ideal start to the season, seemingly.
Hey, 1-1. What is he? 1-1 -5. It's not
It's not
bad.
the worst place to be in.
But hey, this week he has Miguel, so we could see if he continues that, maybe improving on little things.
Yeah, and certainly if he can beat John, I wouldn't count him out against Miguel.
Exactly. So moving on, because we're kind of pushing like 30 minutes here. These next four spots, when you guys want us to discuss more and agree less, this is where we're going to be discussing more and agreeing less, because these four slots right here, Dan's and I aren't really seeing eye to eye, which is kind of the point of our power rankings. But let's start with Shady Penguin.
All right.
Um, he on my list, he's number 7. On Dan's list, he's number 6. So you can start, Dan.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways, Shady overall did pretty well this week. There are a couple of maybe questionable plays for sure, but I feel like he just got messed up by a crit, and I think that crit kind of got him off his focus and made him lose the game. So, in some token, it's I feel like he was just so close yet so far. He's 1-1. He's not like John where he's in a not as good of a spot, and that's why I had John at number 7 because he's not in as good of a spot. He's 0-2, and I'll talk about John after. I have a whole thing about why he's lower rather.
Me too. Me too.
Um, so that was kind of my reasoning for Shady. I feel like he planned pretty well. What was that? Psych Up Melodic, right? Isn't that
Yep.
what he? Yeah, I thought that was excellent.
It was.
So it's all that really is why I kept Shady Penguin relatively high. He lost, and there were a few plays I disagreed with, so I had to move him down a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. What it was for John and for obviously everyone else below him. So in my mind, Shady right now is still pretty much in the number 6 spot.
Okay. I also I have Shady number 6. The or I have number 7. Sorry. The reason I have him there is, okay. There's a difference between innovative and unnecessary. Conkeldurr using Foresight plus Facade. Now, little but notes to Shady. if you use foresight on a magic bouncer, the foresight gets bounced back. So even if he did use it to the way he had thought, it wouldn't have worked out. Um, I don't see a reason to run facade when AV knockoff is still effective, especially against a team with Chansey. Why don't you have a knockoff against a team with a goddamn Chansey? Like that's so necessary because of how bulky Chansey is. And I think that he knew because of how many special attackers that he had that he needed to knock off that Eviolite in order just to have the capability of breaking through that annoying core. Granted, Dan has been using that wall core to perfection. I kind of doubted it. I don't anymore because oh my god, I would not want to play against that. Um, but besides that, that conch set unnecessary. There's no downside to running knockoff, even against a team that has a Tracheon because he had Mach Punch. You could just knock off Mach Punch, probably do big damage, or depending on rocks up hazards, whatever damage, probably would kill it.
Mm.
Fishing for a burn on the Chansey with his melodic, not smart, and then also in his planning, he mentioned that he was worried that Volcarona got sleep powder. It doesn't, and that's like below a rookie mistake. I just can't see past that.
Mm.
But I feel like Shady, besides Psych Up Melodic, that was really smart. Just the way he's using Melodic in general, really smart. Um, Shady's there's also no HP Fairy. Just saying. Um, it's a lot of things that it was little things that added up to just this loss. Not to mention the crits and the hacks that Dan had gotten. Um, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not gonna like totally rebut what you said, but I just feel like, yes, I can concede most of that was not really good.
Hey man, if
Obviously,
you disagree,
especially
tell me I'm
HP
wrong.
Fairy, that was kind of ridiculous. But,
Yeah.
uh, but to be honest, he's not in as bad a shape as the people below him, in my opinion, and that's in spite of everything you just said. That's why I kind of kept him at 6.
Yeah, I just feel like in his division though, if he does make these mistakes, he will not get out of that division.
Well, the good thing is, all right, fingers crossed, of course, but I don't think Shady's gonna ever think there's an HP fairy again, and I don't think he'll think that Volcarona gets sleep powder. Um,
Mostly
okay,
because
Shady, if you're watching this video, my message to
he's
you:
not.
if you want to do better, don't be afraid to go on to Cerebi.net rather and look up movesets. You're not sure if Volcarona gets sleep powder? Go ahead, go look it up. No one's stopping you. Go do that. And go. You need to see if HP Fairy exists. Go ahead.
Hey man,
It's
the man is
even
so busy, dude.
you don't have to be afraid to look like a quote unquote rookie on camera because I think it would be more more manly, more beneficial for you, on camera to go say, okay, guys, I'm not sure if Volcarona gets sleep powder. I want to go look it up. I just feel like that would be a lot better for him as a player, and it would prevent us from having to say, uh, hey, he's kind of making big rookie mistakes. Instead, what we could say is Shady knows his limitations. He's not going to know what every single Pokemon gets, so he's going to be resourceful. And we could have definitely been able to applaud him for that. But once again, that's my message to you, Shady.
I mean, hey, Dan last season he did look up if Seismic Toss could affect a ghost type on camera, and he did get bashed for that. But hey, look it up if you need to. Um, but I think the reason he doesn't is because he's kind of very like riled up about the battle. So maybe it isn't his first idea to jump in and look up something that he might not know, especially when he had planned specifically for that idea. So
And I understand that. I think my biggest counterpoint to that, though, he does damage calcs during the battle. I feel like that actually would probably take longer than searching Volcarona Cerebi on Google. Click a link, Control F. Oh, I don't see sleep powder here. You know, that's the only thing I could counter that with.
right. Um, so do you want to talk about his opponent first?
Uh, sure, we could do that. Yeah, Dan, I had at number 5. So, yeah, Dan moved up a bit. Obviously, he kind of won more towards hacks, but I will give him some credit because he got a couple good sets in this week. I actually really liked that Volcarona set. Um, the non-sleep powder Volcarona, obviously, but it was a choice scarf with U-turn, and I thought that was really nice in general. Um, Obviously, the Chansey and Mega Sableye core, it's proving to be really threatening, and I think that Dan is actually utilizing it very well. I think we all underestimated it. And that's why I put Dan at 5, because he's using that core very well. Regardless of the hacks he got in that match, Chansey and Mega Sableye is nothing to be messed with. You are going to need something with a physical fairy type move and knockoff to even have a hope at bringing that thing down. So, those are kind of, in general, my thoughts on that situation. I feel like he's above Shady. Obviously, he won in spite of hacks, but I just feel like because of that core and his dominance with that core so far, that's why I can put him ahead, because he's shown that he has a better understanding of his team than I think even we've given him credit for in the past. So, what are your thoughts?
Okay. Dan, outside of that Chansey Sableye core, Dan just his playing like it pisses me off because it he got so lucky this week. And yes, okay, embrace the luck, embrace the hacks, whatever you want. But Scarfed Volcarona, I don't agree with. I could see its usage, but okay. And I'm stealing this from Adam. Too bad. Um, but you have Assault Vest 1.5 SPDF. You have Specs 1.5 special attack, and you have Scarf 1.5 speed. Quiver Dance does all of that. Use Quiver Dance. I think it was a better option. Even 3 moves Quiver Dance is probably more effective than Scarfed with U-turn. Just me, again, maybe we're seeing something that he wasn't, but that's just how I feel. The crits on his end, I can't justify moving him anywhere above like 6 because of the fact that he got so many crits. The crits, the SPDF drops, that clutch freeze. If he had not gotten that freeze, I think that the crucial damage that Shady would have gotten with the Leaf Storm against the Mew probably would have won him the match. Granted, we can't say that because um, things happen. If he has more damage on something, he was very aware of what his mons could and couldn't do. But just that the luck that he had gotten and just some of the things he said and the way that he had played because of the hacks, I can't. This All right, Dan, I'm going to ask you. If you were on Shady's end of this match, how would you feel afterward?
I would feel like I was robbed, to be honest.
Exactly, and I feel like I'm robbing anyone else that is above him if I put Dan above a 6 position because this match got me angry to watch because I know if I was in Shady's shoes in this match, I would not want to talk or consider Pokemon until like the following Sunday. That I'd probably skip a week and be like, no, I'm good, because damn, this week, this match, I was watching it and it was a good match. I enjoyed the back and forth, and the commentary was even good on both their ends. It's the things that happen in the match that I would just be so frustrated that it happened that way, that I got screwed out of it because of reasons, and not the SPDF drops, but crits and all that. So, also Dan Honchkrow doesn't learn Dazzling Gleam. So those are my notes.
Yeah, I think on that token, I give the same message to Dan about Dazzling Gleam Honchkrow, which that would be pretty cool. But no, it does not.
Doesn't make
Use
sense though.
Seraphine. Don't be afraid to. If you're not sure, it's
I mean, he has
okay
done it
to say it
before.
on camera. Just you can do it. Uh, I will say I did obviously like the Scarf Volcarona. I think that the surprise value was, yes, Quiver Dance is a better set, but if you're going to use Scarf Volcarona once or twice, the surprise value, I think at least had some value for him this week. And that's just my opinion, obviously. It's fine that you have a different one, and that's good, because it's good to have some different opinions and to have a small debate here.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, my bottom line for putting Dan above Shady, I just feel like his defensive core was better, and even though he got some hacks, I think going forward, that will help Dan more than what Shady has on his team. I feel like that's a huge asset for Dan, whereas Shady, I don't want to say he doesn't have a defensive core, but just one that's not as good. And once again, Dan is using it very well. So I expect him, or at least hope, that he'll continue to use it well. And if he can, then he'll definitely at least stay in the top half. So that's those were my thoughts, obviously. And if you have anything else, you have anything else to say?
Nope. I want to talk about Mulvone next and leave John for last.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, no problem. All right, Mulvone. We already talked about Nips' side. I don't have much to add. I think this is going to be very quick. I think that Mulvone was reckless with Talonflame. Talonflame is now 0-1. I think that was good for Nips, not necessarily good for him. Talonflame did do a fair amount of work outside of the Jirachi and the Quagsire. I think that the bottom line is that Mulvone got saved by that crit ice shard. Outside of that, I do think that the Scarf Roserade probably would have killed the Weavile because it is in fact a Weavile. It's hard. Again, I can't really put him that high because of just how lucky or game saving he got by hacks and that crit. Granted, the ice shard, Roserade does have like base 50, I think, defense against a Weavile, which does have high attack and super effective. But this match also, like I said, was weird and it was reckless. And I just think Mulvone's get a better foothold in his team. He played fine otherwise, not, highlighting certain moves because I don't think there were that many. But, again, he won the hacks. Other teams won the hacks. I'm not going to move him up that high. It's why he only moves up one spot for me because of the other teams that were around him moved down. And, yeah, that's it.
All right. So, okay. Mulvone was in my number 4 spot, and that's kind of an alarming number for someone who kind of plays a lot of bread and butter sets. All right, let's talk about Talonflame to start. Its kill to death ratio is 1.2. It's got 18 kills in the GBA, all 4 seasons of the GBA, and 15 deaths. It hasn't proven to be the most effective thing for everyone who plays in the GBA. It's a bit underwhelming compared to what you see in Standard, is basically what I'm saying here. This week was no exception, as Tom said. He kind of didn't really use it very well. I feel like he could have saved it, particularly for Roserade, so he didn't need the Ice Shard crit, which obviously bailed him out, or really at least facilitated his win. In general, though, I don't really want to say I put Mulvone at 4, as much as he had fewer red flags than everyone below him. I'll talk about John's red flags later, when we discuss John, because we save that for last. But I feel like there are just a couple little nitpicks about the teams below him that I currently have, and I talked about some of those, and Tom talked about some of those, that's why I put Mulvone up. I just don't have as many nitpicks about what Mulvone has been doing so far. Yeah, it's been pretty bread and butter, but for 2 weeks, it's been working for him, and it's actually been working to at least pretty well. He's got a solid differential. What is his different? It's in the, I don't know, like 7 maybe is my guess, something like that.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah, it must be somewhere in that area because he's 2-0, and he got 2 sizable wins if I can remember correctly. It's something like that. But that's I think why I'd put Mulvone at 4. Like I said, it's not really me putting him at 4 as much as I feel like he, except for Vivillon, he just didn't have as many problems that I've seen so far as the teams below him. So, what are your thoughts?
Are we going to talk about John now?
Oh yeah, we already talked. Oops. Do you have any final thoughts? Is what I meant to say.
Nope, I didn't have much about Mulvone. I just think that it was just it was an match.
Yeah, no, it wasn't anything too special, but he won it pretty. Once he got past that Ice Shard crit, I mean, other than that, it was pretty, more or less one-sided in a lot of ways.
Basically. I actually want you to discuss how you feel about John first. I feel like you have, I like your reasoning. I want you to try and, counter with what I have to say.
Okay. Let's just get my notes up here. Okay. All right. John is at number 7. Now, this might be alarming for some people. All right, I first want to start out by saying he's 0-2. Yeah, I still think on paper he is the best team in the league, and that hasn't changed. Some of my thoughts are changing, but that hasn't changed. He's really been screwed over by hacks. There's no question about that. But I feel like even though he's been screwed over by hacks and he only has a -2 differential, he has a huge red flag. There is an elephant in the room for him. It's time. Not quite yet, but I'm kind of sweating bullets for him. Keep in mind it's a 10-game season. A fifth of it is already gone. Uh, it's basically 8 games left. Cooper just might take the division if John isn't careful, and he's only an adequate standing for the wild card. 0-2 at -2 is only, I'd say, adequate. If he wins some games and gets some good differential, then he's a shot at it. But if he keeps losing, even at low differentials, I'm not seeing that there. Uh, like I said, that's his saving grace, the -2 differential. All right, now putting John down at 7 doesn't mean that I think he's bad or that he can't do it. Actually, on the contrary, because in season 2 he started out 0-2 and ended up almost winning the league. That was in 14 games, I will say. This is a little bit more condensed, and it'll be a bigger challenge for him. But I think he's gonna. I'd like to see him rebound. I'm getting nervous for him, given the difficulty in escaping the 0-2 deficit and seemingly being at the bottom of his division, but that doesn't mean it's undoable. Uh, Obviously, I think this week is a make or break for John because that red flag is starting to show up. That time red flag, because we're getting to a third of the way through the season basically next week, or pretty close, 30%. Uh, he needs a win to move back into the top half, in my opinion. Whether it's due to luck or not, doesn't matter. Going 0-3 is detrimental for playoff hopes, and obviously, I take into account hacks as a part of my rankings for who's placed where and whatnot, but I reflect as well their likelihood of getting into the playoffs. It literally doesn't matter if let's just, for example, John is 0-7. He loses 1-0 to hacks every single week. It is the worst hacks in the world. Actually, I think if that happened, John would probably leave the league because you'd have the worst luck in the world. But anyways, this is just hypothetically, and it's an extreme. He's 0-7, let's just say. I don't think that'll happen, but I hope it doesn't. And he's -7 because of hacks. He's not going to be able to make the playoffs, so I can't keep him up there. And once again, this is more of a warning flag than saying, oh, that's going to happen, because it's not. And that's kind of why I'm sweating bullets for him. I think time will tell. And honestly, I think he's got a game versus Nips this week. I think he's a good matchup, and I think he has a strong chance of getting that first victory. I think when he gets that first victory, and I hope it's this week, things should start to turn around for him. But really, the reason why I have him down so low is because of that big warning flag. That's the biggest thing. Time and being 0-2 this early, or this late, quote unquote, into the season, a fifth of the way through the season, is not a good way to start when there are only 8 games left. And that's why I had John at 7. That's a little bit convoluted I probably was a little bit unsequential, but I did the best I could to articulate why I think John should be at number 7, at least for this week. If he wins next week, I can almost guarantee he'll be in the top half again. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear it.
Putting John below a team that had lost because of hacks and a team that had won, and 2 teams beat that one because of hacks, is a disservice to John. 2-0 is not a big deal even in a 10-week season. 2-0 at -2, or 0-2 -2, is even less of a big deal in a 10-week season. I do think that, yes, John has been outplayed week 1. John got critted for a loss, even though he had the plan in week 2. I do, however, think that there is no reason that we should consider him done, or we should consider him, that we should be worried. I'm gonna say what, like Aaron Rodgers said in this past NFL season, RELAX. Just relax, because you know what? Things will turn around. John has a plan. He plans well. He knows what he wants. I said he was hungry last week, and he was. He was one play away from a win, and he had a plan to do so. I think like I said, it's a huge disservice if I'm going to put 2 teams who had won 2 crippling hacks above John when, I'm gonna use Gubbs as an example in GBA season one. I think Gubbs had lost like 5 games in a row, and they were close games,
I think it
but he
was
still
two
went.
actually. I don't think it was five. He was. I'm pretty sure he ended 7-3.
Oh, then it was like 4 games. But the point, but or whatever it was, might have
He
been
lost
season
a couple
two.
games in a row.
It
That's
might
the
have been season two. But again, that was 14 weeks. But the point is,
yeah. Go on,
a
sorry.
team can lose. No, you're right. You're right for interjecting. A team can lose multiple games in in a block like I did, for example. I lost like 5 games in a row season one, but I came back. And granted, I make the playoffs, but I came back winning the last five, and was like one differential away from making it to the playoffs. A team can lose 2 games in a row. A team can lose, with a -2 differential, and that's perfect, especially in his division, because of the fact that his division has Steve right now at like -9, 0-2, and he has Cooper at 1-1 at like +5. If he's 0-2 at -2, he is in a great position in those two. And remember, 6 teams make the playoffs. I have no worry about John. I have no concern. I have no like feeling that he's gonna miss out because of just these two like poor weeks. I think that he's gonna bounce back. This is just a setback, and from here on out, there shouldn't be any issues
Hmm.
because I think he's gotten his crits out of the way. I think, or I hope he does at least. And like I said, I can't drop him down below 4 because of the teams that are below him. I just don't think that they're worthy of being brought up higher than he is. And I'm not looking at differential. I'm not looking at record. Like you can argue with me and say, oh well, someone's 2-0. Why are they below John? Because it's these rankings are made from my mind, at least, the potential to be good the entire season, and not necessarily week to week. Like, yes, there's a week to week power rankings, but I'm also focusing in on the bigger picture and not just the specific 10-week windows. If
Hmm.
that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I actually agree with a lot of what you said. And my whole reasoning was based off, like I said, a huge red flag. That's only really a warning sign for John. He is nowhere near out of it, and I don't expect him to be out of it. If he wins this week, he's right back in it.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
especially if he can get into positive differential, he's right back in it. So overall, I think the bottom line here is we want to see John win this week. We want to see him turn it around, and if he does that, he's in good standing, no question. If he loses, I'd put 2 red flags on him because it's going to be even more difficult to get out of an 0-3 deficit.
If he loses, then yes, he will
That's
drop in my books.
that's unprecedented to especially losing. I mean, losing to Nips, who's number 12, especially unless Nips plans exceptionally well.
Or
I
gets
can't,
exceptionally lucky.
or that too, I guess. Uh, I just really hope to see John win this week if he wants to bounce back in the rankings.
Yeah, basically. Um, that's pretty much all we can say about him. Our top three are all the same. We saw the same thing pretty much for the top three contenders. Uh, Starting off with Cooper.
Yeah.
This was a non-conventional week for Cooper because I didn't quite see what I'm used to in terms of a Cooper team. I did like seeing the Blissey Dust Noir core. I I'm really I've used Spiritomb, which I think kind of has the same issues that Dust Noir has. It has better typing, granted, but Dust Noir I think has too low of an HP stat, and it only really has one way to get its HP back with Pain Split. But I liked his wall core. I liked his planning. I think he got screwed out of a 5-6-0 with that para from the Specs Jolteon and the Foley para, because if he didn't get fully paired at +1 with the D dance, he probably could have knocked out that Jolteon and maybe killed something else, or at least forced something else out to
Yeah.
be in a better position based on his wall core. Also, he has a Starmie. Like, that's a great revenge killer in any kind of discussion. Cooper played okay. That's pretty much the bottom line.
Yeah.
Having Lucario in the end there just to clean up, and having E-Speed over Bullet Punch, I could see his reasoning why he did such. And his Lucario cleaned up in the end. He played okay. I expect better. I know he will play better. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I mean, we had Cooper at 1 last week, both of us. He dropped down to 3 for both of us. Obviously, I feel like the biggest reason why he dropped was he lost to Crimson. Yeah, it was a lot of the reason due to hacks, but I feel like, yeah, you're right. He did experiment with a new type of team. Maybe he thought that he could experiment with a new type of team against one of the considered weaker teams. Maybe. I don't know, but obviously it almost worked out given that there was that parahax,
Yeah.
but it didn't quite work out for him in the end, and maybe he'll think twice about using this type of team later. Maybe he'll go back to the type of stally type garbage that he's used to. We
Stolly type garbage.
hashtag stally type garbage. But there you go. I mean, maybe that was why. I'm just hypothesizing here. Obviously, Cooper will probably comment because I know he watches these videos, and that's fine. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Cooper. That's cool.
Hashtag
Uh,
Stolly type garbage. I do think him bringing Max Blissey was really cool. It's kind of on the border between unnecessary and innovative. It was cool to see. I have, run a team where, or I've run, Blissey before, where it's had like a lot of speed investment to outpace another wall. It's effective. But my one kind of critique was him bringing Lucario, a physical Lucario at that, against a team that potentially had Skarm, Sableye, and Weezing on the same team. Kind of weird.
yeah,
Something that probably, I mean, again, Cooper is like great at planning. So what he sees and what we're analyzing, two completely different things. But
definitely.
it was a little weird to me. Maybe kind of look at that differently next time. Although it doesn't get Blaze Kick, so I guess a +2 Blaze Kick would do a lot. So,
Yeah, I mean, all right. You have my permission to mute your sound for a minute because I'm going to be talking about Ag GG Ron.
God damn it. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm over it.
Just brief note on Ag GG Ron. Obviously worked very well for Cooper this week. He got 2 KOs and he got a flinch. It kind of ruined that Clefable's day. Uh, I'm liking what Agron is doing in the league so far. I've got some stats for it here. Hold on just 1 second. Let's open up its kill to death ratio. Agron. It's got 6 kills in the GBA and 1 death, which is obviously a kill death ratio of 6. So far, it's been doing pretty well. So I'm hoping to see Cooper keep up good work with Agron, or in general. Actually, no, sorry, it is 8-1 because he got 6 KOs against Tom. Sorry.
Yes, it did.
So my bad. I forgot to add some stuff up. But anyways, it's very high. Bottom line. So watch out for Agron in the future.
Okay. Miguel. Miguel. Um, there was a comment that he made in the middle of his video. Miguel played exceptionally well. It was impressive how well he played. There was never a point in which he was out of control, and even his planning that he did beforehand was spot on. The Chestnut specifically handled Mega Swampert. The Powdon, the Tentacle handled everything else. Even the Tentacle handled the Kudra, which also was a big problem I know in his mind. But Miguel had said, "You make a solid team and let that team win the match. Don't make predictions every turn." And that type of quote kind of resonates with me because coaches who really know what they're doing can say that, but outside of just saying that, they can execute that. And that's important because that's what he did. He took his plans with Megalop, with Hydreigon, and his Wall Core, and he played as effectively as really as you could, and outside of that, he won big because he stayed in control the entire time. Yeah, the damage roll on the high jump kick after the DC, that was kind of big. But Geo played a certain way. He just had maintained control as he did in week one. That's all that matters, and that's why he's number two.
Mm. Yeah, I resonate with a lot of pretty much all of your reasoning there. I feel like Miguel, based off that token, based off your little quote from earlier, Miguel kind of knew what the Giantes were. They were who he thought they were, and he didn't let them off the hook. So I feel like he planned very well. I thought Victini was very well executed, especially against a rain team. That was, I think, the most impressive performance on his team, and obviously that's kind of apparent with 4 KOs. But in general, it was a lot of typical Miguel, but typical Miguel works really well in this league, and there is not a single doubt in my mind that Miguel is going to be a top contender going through the rest of the season. He was what, like 9-1, or well, he won all the games he played in the D League. He was 4-1 last season, only losing to Gubs because he made a couple of mistakes. We can let those slide because obviously he's proven he's got past them, and he's 2-0 right now. He's in a very good spot. I hope to see Miguel continue to build up some differential and be a top contender because it's looking like if things continue, he's going to be in the top.
Oh yeah, I can see that easily.
So, yep, I mean, there's not a lot of disagreement. I don't think we can disagree with anything on Miguel. I think he's using his team well. I think he's using the variety that he has in his team well. I like that he's using Sandstream and Sandforce Hippowdon. I know it's a little thing, but it goes a long way for the team he has. So, I really like everything he's doing right now.
Especially
I'm anxious to watch more.
Beginning of the season, I thought that him using Sandstream would cause an issue in the season when he'd have to like play around residual damage with the Sandstorm. But on our final note, after this long video, we have Hank. Again, I think that Hank also just maintained control. I think he had the necessary AV users in Amoonguss and Excadrill, and then also having the Alamomola. Just having those three as a defensive role kind of outclassed Steve's defenses. And not only that, but with Steve allowing Mega Pinsir or Pinsir to get in and then Mega Evolve and then get behind a sub, basically for free without getting much damage on it prior. That was huge. That was huge. The crit against the Mega Pinsir was too little too late from Steve's Donphan. Mostly that was due because he got Mega Pinsir in for free, but once he had gotten the +2 up, regardless that he wasn't behind a sub, it was over. Nothing, not even the Lando, could take a hit. So good planning on Hank's part, and that's why we have him at number 1 and Cooper rightfully at his number 3 spot. I know we didn't mention that.
Yeah, Hank, it's a Mega Pinsir story. There is no doubt about it. Mega Pinsir is one of the most dominant forces in this league. Don't believe me? Well, its kill-death ratio, 3.9. For every 3.9 kills, almost 4, it dies once. That's throughout its history in the league. I might need to update that. I mean, I think I updated it with the +6, so let's just assume I did. That's still a very scary number. So, and it's going to average, I know in its career, or I'm pretty confident, 75% confident actually, that it's going to average between 2.6 and 5.2 as its kill to death ratio in its entire career, which is really scary, even on the 2 end. So that is, except for Aggron, which has a smaller sample size, it's among the highest on this stats document. Keep that in mind. So watch out for Mega Pinsir. It's a threat to be reckoned with. Steve learned that, and he learned it well. I mean, of course, that wasn't helped by the whole showdown calculator thing, granted, but that, I think, alone would summarize how well Hank is doing right now. Beyond that, Amoonguss and Alamomola, I'm a big fan of that. Infernape has some versatility. I like Excadrill, obviously. I think he's got a lot going for him right now. And honestly, it was so close last week between Cooper and Hank. It was just, this was the reason to move Hank up now because Cooper lost. And a couple other problems, obviously, we talked about with Cooper, the minor little things.
Right.
This was the reason to move him up this week. And it ended up leading Cooper to go to his rightful place at 3. So
exactly, and that's see, guys, that's all that matters. Cooper's number 3, and the world is now right.
Yes, indeed. So that's kind of why I put Hank at 1. It's really just an aggregate of everything. Everything on his team is great. That I don't really see too many flaws in general. Last week, he just got hacked really badly, but this week, it all just came together for him. I hope to see it continue because he's had a track record of success in GBA leagues. Like I said, I'd like to see it continue.
Yeah, I can see how our list is forming. I could see Hankin and Miguel, even Cooper, John, whoever else that we have in the top six. They can pretty much stay there. I think they have a good grasp on what they're doing and their bigger picture and what they really intend on doing week to week. So, any other closing thoughts? Oh, I have a closing thought. Sorry about that. Our biggest movers this week are Crimson moving up at 3, as well as Danza Head Tup and Dan moving up at 3. And our biggest droppers were a bunch of people at -2. Oh, Steve at -3 on Dan's list, and a bunch of people at -2 on my list. So
So nothing huge, but it's a couple sizable plus threes. So
now my list just had went through a bunch of different edits, so it might have been different if I had stuck with one of those, but I didn't because better discussion. So
yeah, I went through a lot of this. Took a lot of thought. So
it really
I
did.
I hope if you disagree with us a lot and you think Nips should be number one, or you think Mulvone should be 12, or you think Tup should be number one, go more power to you. You know what? Go comment it. Give us some good reasons. We'd love to read it.
There now, if you could, this is the end of the video. Probably some people will be lost to you already, but watch the 2x if you guys don't want to listen to us for an hour. But we hope you guys enjoyed. Put your rankings and comments in comment section down below. There will be some changes as these weeks go on in terms of how this will work. Not big changes, just minimal, adjustments that we have kind of come up with and have been suggested to by others.
Yeah, in terms
So
of layout, I mean, we're
yeah,
still going to be
exactly.
doing it. It's going to be similar talking format, but the layout might be a little bit.
Exactly. It'll be a little bit more engaging. So we hope you guys enjoyed. We know that we did, even though this one was a little weird, a little bit long-winded, but hey, they're power rankings. So with that, we will bid you guys adieu and have a great day. And
Yeah.
Dan, sign off.
Alrighty, guys. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Have a good week, and see you later.
Bye.